This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Helping you find emotional, spiritual, and physical balance. What does your future hold? It's time to find out with Psychic Suzanna.
Yes, you are right where you need to be. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Now, you can always find us at psychicsusanna.com, or you can always find us at KFAB.com. And I got to tell you, you go to KFAB.com, you find out about the roads, the weather, anything you need to know. We probably got it covered at KFAB. You also want to check us out on Life with Psychic Suzanna and Susanna Stickney on Facebook. Both of those places will give you information about what's coming up on the shows. We like to keep you informed. We like to also share with you what we're working on every day. Every day I like to bring out a thought or a positive thought that I'm going to work on. Quite often you will see, and one of my thoughts is I choose to be peaceful today. So it's all about where you put your minds and where you put your thoughts. And I got to tell you, of course, last week was 9/11. And this week, we're going to be talking to another 9/11 survivor. And you might be thinking, what is she doing this about? Why is she doing this? And I'm coming from the place that all of us deal with trauma. We all have trauma in our life. And the key to trauma, that whatever happens, is to learn to let go of the trauma and to forgive the trauma. We're going to be talking to Layren Manning, who was actually burned 82% of her body. 82% of her body was burned. She was then taken to the hospital, not given medication until 2:30 in the afternoon, burned at 8:30. And she started the morning off with a fight with her husband. So it's sort of like, when we talk about all of this trauma, have you ever noticed how it all cavalcates? You start your morning off rough in an argument, and things get worse and worse. Wouldn't it be great if we knew how to forgive instantly? Wouldn't it be great if we could not forget? We never want to forget, but forgive. And so after we're done with with Layren Manning, we're going to have an author on that we've had on before. He wrote the book, The Happy Mind. And he's going to be on to tell us how we can learn to forgive when we have been through a lot of things. Okay? How we forgive our tragedy if we lose a child, I can't imagine anything more hard. How can you forgive? My son was hit by a drunk driver and is being in a home. How do we learn to forgive? This is something we've really got to work with, because we can't heal ourselves if we can't forgive. It all starts in the beginning within us. So this is what the show is about. This is going to be, I hope, a show that will help you understand a little bit more. Layren Manning in our conversation, and needless to say, I had to tape it this week because, being burned 82%, losing 4 months of her life, being in great pain. She wasn't available on 9/11. She was in Tower 1. Now, she has a little thought process that I thought was pretty interesting. She says that every day you have a choice, and you have to make it count. So instead of when she was on the verge of life and death, she made the choice to live. And she made the choice to survive, to see her son again. And that is our lesson in life. We have this choice. We can choose to stay in our bitterness, or we can move forward. We can be the victim, or we can release the victimhood and move through it. Right now, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back with, and you're going to hear my interview with Layren Manning. She wrote the book, Unmeasured Strength. And it actually takes the reader from her step out of the taxi into the 911 into Tower 1. We will be right back with Layren Manning. Stay tuned. And then Dr. Yoder, he's coming on to help us learn how to let go and how to forgive. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. She knew I was going to say that.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. You can always find us at psychicsusanna.com or kfab.com, where you'll also be able to listen to this interview again. This interview is about 9/11. 9/11, we did that last week. Why are we doing it again today? Because 9/11 is a memory that will live within all of us. And today we have a survivor of 9/11 who has written the book Unmeasured Strength. I welcome to the airwaves Layren Manning. Welcome, Layren.
Thank you, Susanna. I appreciate you having me.
All right. You know, Layren, I would so love to have coffee with you and talk about the weather and talk about the sun shining and talk about your children. But unfortunately, being the only survivor of your group on 9/11, we have to talk about this and how you came back from 9/11 to be the Unmeasured Strength, to write this book. First of all, before we go into you telling us, I've looked at the book. I love how you give your husband's perspective of the first day, because I think it's not just those who go through the horror, but those around him who can't do anything.
It's a tough position to be in, sometimes just as difficult.
It's and to watch someone you love in pain is just horrendous. Tell me what you feel that you've gained from the horror of 9/11.
Well, I think it was much of the impetus for putting these words down in a book. The thankfulness that I have to my sons for being there, for leading me out in many ways, my first son, and to the countless strangers that reached out to me. I think what I learned in life is something that my father, a former Marine, shared with me years ago as a very rebellious teenager. You're not going to get what you want most of the time. You're going to be disappointed, so just get over it. And what I learned was that, you know, when touched by this tragedy in such a desperate way, I had still been given a shot that so many of my friends and colleagues hadn't been. And although I was very much pegged as a goner and someone that wouldn't make it, I did. And I think I did by finding this unmeasured strength, this
inner strength.
Inner strength,
yes.
That I was able to pull forward through, you know, my life experience and through places I was not aware that it existed, and that it is something we have within all of us if we make the decision to use it.
Well, as I understand it, what was your position on 9/11 or 9/10? What was your position?
My position in terms of
your life. What were you doing on 9/10?
Well, I was a managing director and partner at Cantor Fitzgerald, really coming to a peak in my career. I had finally had what seemed like, you know, a perfect life, you know, working hard. I had a great husband, a baby we had tried so hard to have, you know, the dog, and, you know, a decent place to live, and everything seemed fine. You know, I was probably inundated with the pettiness of in certain ways of life that I've learned in many ways to move beyond. My husband wanted to change his career, and we had our argument the night before about it. You know, how could you do that now? It's, you know, it's something only a young person does. There's no money in it. There's so much risk. And that morning I was very happy to leave the house.
Yes. So you left the house a little bit uptight with your husband.
Yep.
And tell me the story if you can.
Well, It has to do with a black lab dog, a key, and an apple pie, which construed to make me late. A series of phone calls to arrange for another key, and I'll leave that to the readers to explore. And I grabbed a cab. I was annoyed to be running late, got down to the World Trade Center, and walked into the building as the first plane hit, unbeknownst to me, far above. And it blew up. The fuel ignited with other debris and shot down the elevator shafts, blew out, enveloping me in flames. As I turned to run, I was pulled back into the backdraft and eventually got to the doors and was literally spit out onto the sidewalk, where I ran to a small grass patch across the way to drop and roll like we all learn. And in those moments, the pain and the agony were so incredibly overwhelming. I felt myself going under, and I made a conscious decision to live. I decided to live for my son. I had a vision of him and how little time I'd had him, and I couldn't leave him.
You know,
I prayed not to leave him.
And I believe in life there are critical moments where we do make that decision. We do make the decision. As I looked through the book, I understood that you were horrifically burned at 8:30 in the morning, and you did not get medication till 2:30 in the afternoon. What's up with that?
Well, certainly I was on the bank for nearly 50 minutes when a stranger that had come along to help others who never made it off that bank stayed with me, and I helped me walk to the EMS truck. I got to St. Vincent's. They tried to do the best that they could. I needed a specialist care center. A social worker went down and prayed in the chapel, went into a corridor and asked for burn nurses. 2 women that were either there on vacation or lived in the city, volunteered, came forward, did the best that they could. And later that day, a doctor who my husband and I had seen in the ER a couple years before, my husband had broken his finger rollerblading, wrote an order, even though the city was on lockdown, to get me out of there and get me up to the William Randolph Hearst Burn Center, which is where the treatment began that would eventually save my life. And everyone did what they could. You know, it was a horrible situation and a very difficult one to manage. I wasn't someone that you would peg as a person that would be and remain with the living.
Yeah. That has got to be hard in itself, and then coming to the understanding that you are alive for a divine purpose, and that there is a purpose in your sharing your story, and there is a purpose for things. And what do you know, I would say the purpose is to let us have the attitude of gratitude for the moments. Is that the big picture you got? What do you think the big picture of this is?
I think in many ways, yes, gratitude to the countless strangers here in this country and around the world that wrote to me, that prayed for me, that did things for me when I least expected it. They helped lift and carry me forward. I think the message for me is that we all have an ability within ourselves to reach out, embrace who we are, and to move beyond the pity party when things get difficult, when things happen that we think shouldn't have, couldn't have, not me, and yet it is you.
Right.
And to make a choice every day to make it count. For me, it was breathing, you know, moment to moment for weeks at a time, but we can find a path forward, even for those of us that are most injured.
I often tell my clients that the breath is your connection with spirit, and it is your being alive. So with each breath, you have the power to improve. There was one story in there. Now, what faith are you? May I ask? Is that okay?
I was a Protestant by upbringing.
So a rabbi comes into the hospital. Is that correct? Can you tell us that story?
Yes. There were, there were those that died that day, many, and those that survived, but there was a small group of people that were severely injured. I was on the catastrophic end of that. And one of them, there was another colleague of mine that made it out, and his wife had called in their rabbi, and my husband, who was Jewish by birth, said, please say words for my wife, let her hear the words of God. And he came in and prayed. Rabbi Andrew Jacobs, a very young man at the time, who not experienced just starting his clergyship, and
wow, that must have been something.
He was in an altered state in this coma, but the power of words to reach those that are beyond still exists, and so I'm sure at some level they offered me solace and hope.
Well, I read that portion from your book, and again, this is a very interesting book. The thing about it is the courage. I find the courage in the whole book, and I love how you detailed the steps along the way. I mean, you didn't cover it over, and so many people, when it's difficult times, don't look the difficulty in their eyes, and they just sort of don't look it in their eyes, and they sort of just not see it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you looked the difficulty in the eyes. You explained it to all of us as we were going through it. And I thought that was just powerful, because as you gain strength, I gain strength. So it's a very powerful book. But the faith is where I sort of center my life around, and going through things and having the faith in. And has this empowered you with the idea of the purpose of life?
Yes, I think, beforehand, especially for women, you've got to have the career, you've got to be the perfect mother, you've got to do this, get that. So much pressure on us. And I relented to understanding that in my very imperfect body was an imperfect world, and that was really okay. And I had a real reckoning with what faith is all about, which is basically just allowing yourself not to be fearful of believing that you can't do something, that it won't happen, that the win really is in just the effort. Take that breath, as you said, bring in that spirit of hope, because that's all you've got. We're here for such a short time.
Did you have any guilt feelings of surviving, and how have you dealt with that?
No,
by the way,
frankly,
I call guilt a man-made emotion to control man. So I didn't feel guilty. I mean, I got knocked around that day, and it has been years of pain. Parts of it will never go away. I felt that I had embodied in me a piece of everyone that fought that day but never really had a chance. Beautiful.
And it was my duty and my obligation to move forward. And so I have done that to the best of my ability.
Okay. And do you have fears now that come with, do you have thoughts when you see a Muslim? Does that make you apprehensive? Does it make you a little on your toes?
No, there've always been good guys and bad guys. And unfortunately, in the primitive nature of mankind in many ways, I don't think that will be eradicated anytime soon. I take everyone at face value, and give people the opportunity to do the right thing or to fail.
So have you forgiven the 9/11 bombers?
I don't, do I think that I think they were very misguided people. I don't think forgiveness is a word for me in the vernacular of what needed to happen. I needed to move beyond what is inevitably disappointment in this world. The wars, the inconsistencies, the misguided notions of the right way to live, the right God to worship. You know what? It's a lot easier than that. And so it's taking that step, that lonely step, one foot in front of the other and moving forward. And you either get it or you don't.
That's it. I got to thank you, Layren, for being with us. Layren Manning from Unmeasured Strength. And I want you to know we're going to come back with someone who's going to talk to us about forgiveness. We'll see how that works. Thank you again for being with us.
Thanks very much, Suzanna.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
Yes, you are here, right where you need to be. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. You can always find us at PsychicSuzanna.com. That gets you the schedule. That gets you a free question. You can go to KFAB.com. You can re-listen to this interview, but you're going to want to stay tuned for the next part of the interview. You know, we talk about, for the last 2 weeks, we've talked about the major tragedy that affected us all. But in our daily life, we always have something that happens. I was sitting with a woman the other day, and she could not forgive her friend, her ex-friend, because she said something mean about her son. This whole forgiveness thing, how do we come to grips with it? From the smallest thing to the largest thing, how do we learn to find peace? And I think the way we do it is forgiving. I think forgiving is only forgiving. But Dr. Yoder is going to be on with us. He wrote the book, The Happy Mind. He's going to be on after when we come back from our break. We're also going to have some time to sit there, and we're going to have some time to take your calls. Now, we have people on hold, but I want to get right to Dr. Yoder when we get back, okay? So you can get online now and be on hold, and after Dr. Yoder, we're going straight to your calls. But this show is important. Show will help you to learn how to deal with those emotions of anger and those emotions of regret that you have within yourself and the unforgiveness. Yeah, this is about helping you and empowering you. The numbers again are 402-558-1110, 1-800-543-1110. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna. This is 1110 KFAB. This is the show that is centered around you and your life, giving you answers to questions that you may have and you may not know yet that you will have. You stay tuned. We're growing together every Sunday night at 7:30. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna. We'll be right back. Yes, you are right where you need to be. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Please find us at PsychicSuzanna.com, where you get a free question, get the schedule, you know where I'm going, you can get a reading, you get a free question. Also KFAB.com, where you're going to get all the radio shows we've done, all of them that are supportive for you to listen to. And then you can also find us at Life with Psychic Suzanna on Facebook, and Susanna Stickney on Facebook and Twitter. Catch out what's happening daily in my life. I've got right now with us Dr. William Yoder. He is the Happy Mind. He is the author of The Happy Mind. The Happy Mind is a book that gives 7 principles to clear your head and lift your heart. Welcome to the show, Dr. Yoder.
Thank you, Susanna.
All right. Now, Dr. Yoder, I'll be honest. What if I just don't want to forgive? Why should I forgive? I've been hurt.
Great question. I mean, you started off today by saying, I'm going to choose to be peaceful today.
Right.
You know, that was a choice that you're making.
Right.
And we heard Layren talk about the human spirit. And
right.
I think that that there's an inner power within each of us that it's kind of a divine spark or whatever you would call it, but it's a power to be happy. It's a power to love. It's a power for peace. It's a power to serve and inspire others. And that inner power is always there. I mean, it's our very truth, so
Right.
it can't go away. And nothing that happens in the world can take that away from us. But we can hide it.
Okay.
We can hide it from ourselves. I mean,
All right.
we and only we can hide it from ourselves. No one can reach inside of our minds and somehow turn it off. And the way we hide it is that we tell ourselves stories that we're weak. We tell ourselves stories that we can be victimized. We tell ourselves stories that something in the past has made us weak and limited, and we can't really feel happy or strong or loving or whole now because somebody took that away from us.
What if it's not a story, boss? What?
Well,
You know, like 9/11, like Lauren or the girl from before, are the person who lost their son at a brutal shooting. That's not a story. That's a reality. How do I?
Lauren was a great example because somebody they had taken away, her a lot from her physically.
Right.
But she refused to say that they had taken away her spirit, her power, her will to move forward, her power to move into life and be happy and continue to live. She refused to give that up. And that's the kind of story we tell ourselves, that we have to be unhappy now because someone back then did something to us. But the truth is, if I'm feeling unhappy now, it's because I'm somehow blocking my own inner happiness. No one else can do that. So the thing about forgiveness is it doesn't mean excusing what somebody did.
Okay.
It doesn't mean saying that what you did was okay.
Okay.
It doesn't mean denying or pretending that it didn't happen. Like Lauren said, or like you said to Lauren, you have to look at it directly in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean not taking steps to prevent it.
Okay.
Forgiveness ultimately is not even a gift that you're giving to somebody else. It's not really about the other person at all. I think forgiveness is your inner choice to let go of your story of blame and victimhood. And yes, your body may have been hurt, but nobody took away your spirit. And if you're telling yourself the story that someone took away your spirit, someone took away that inner power, someone took away your power to be happy and peaceful, if you're telling yourself that story, then you feel weak. You feel limited. You've made yourself a slave to the past.
So are you saying that the origin of blame is not important? All right, say...
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not at all. The event that happened.
Yeah.
And such. For instance, we're talking about that big event on 9/11.
Right.
Yes, that happened, and yes, that was horrible, and yes, many lives were taken. Now, the survivors, and the survivors are both the people that were there, like Lauren, and somehow survived, but we're all the survivors of it. The rest of us who saw that day and had our hearts just torn.
And our fear ignited.
The survivors don't have to spend the rest of their lives unhappy. That doesn't mean they forget it. They doesn't mean they say it's okay. But we don't have to tell ourselves a story that because of that event, my present and my future can never feel whole or happy again. I have to go through the rest of my life feeling depressed or angry or bitter or upset. I have to do that. And we don't have to do that. We can make the choice like Lauren did that I'm going to move forward. We can make the choice like you did that said I'm going to be peaceful today. You didn't say, well, I'm only going to be a teeny bit peaceful today because after all 9/11 happened, or after all somebody treated me unfairly yesterday, so I'm only going to be a teeny bit peaceful today. You said, I'm going to be peaceful today.
Okay. What if I was walking down the street and brutally attacked?
Right.
Okay, I'm brutally attacked.
Right.
I have this huge amount of fear now of walking down the street.
Right.
I have become the victim.
Right.
Now, the victim is not my story. The victim is who I am. Correct?
You were the victim. You were the victim in the sense that your body was attacked.
Right.
And you may need to, with counseling and inner work, work through this. I'm not trying to trivialize it.
Right.
But I don't think that your spirit, your ability to be happy, your ability to love, your ability to help other people, that divine spark within you, I don't think that was damaged, even if you got beat up.
Okay. All right.
But if you feel that because that happened, I can't ever feel confident, I can't ever really love again, if you...
That's where the story is. The story is...
That's the story.
The story.
Yeah, the story is not what happened. The story is that it broke your spirit.
Okay. And the spirit can always be strong if we forgive? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, because the way I define forgiveness is it's your own inner choice to let go of that story that your spirit was broken. Mm-hmm. And you say, well, why in the world would I let go of it? Well, number one, it's not true. Your spirit wasn't broken. So you want to let go of it because it's not true. And secondly, it's precisely because of that story that you're keeping yourself unhappy. That story is what's keeping you unhappy. So when you're forgiving, you're not giving something to the other person.
So I'm not...
Within your mind, you're giving something to yourself. You're saying, I'm going to take my power back. I lost sight of it momentarily, but I'm going to take it back. I'm going to... it's not about the world. It's not a denial of anything in the world. Forgiveness is basically an affirmation of who I am. So...
do I forgive the shooter? Do I forgive the shooter? Or the person who caused the incident?
You don't forgive him in the sense that you say, well, it was okay, and you're okay, and so forth.
So it's okay to be angry.
Yeah, but what you're forgiving is what you're letting go of in forgiveness is saying, I'm not going to hold you accountable for my feelings of weakness and limitation and anger now. I'm not going to hold you accountable. Because, I mean, right when it happened it was, but if now, days later, weeks later, years later, I'm still feeling that way, I'm not going to hold you accountable. You may have taken something away from me at the time, but I'm not going to give you the rest of my life.
I understand.
It's like the terrorist took away lots of lives on 9/11.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we all mourn deeply for those lives.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we survivors then want to give away our own lives, our own power, and say, okay, you took those lives, and now you can have all of our spirits too.
Okay.
You can leave us debilitated and weak and frightened and afraid. You can leave us so that we don't have any inner power to be happy, to love, to do the right thing. Okay. And no one can take that away. You can just give it away. And that's what forgiveness is saying, well, I'm going to let go of that story that you could possibly take that away from me.
Wow.
That's the story I'm letting go of. Now, yes,
I'm going to have to think about this a while.
Yeah, because obviously on that day, the terrorists took away a great deal of things.
Mm-hmm.
On your example, if you got mugged in the street, or shot or something, somebody took something away from you then.
Right.
But they can't take away your spirit. I mean, you can refuse to give your spirit away.
All right.
You can refuse to tell yourself that story, and so in some sense, anytime we're upset, it's this feedback signal that we're blocking this inner thing, and the first step to reclaiming that truth of who we are is forgiveness. The first step toward reclaiming it is, first of all, I'm going to let go of the mistaken story that someone took it away from me.
Okay.
Because they didn't. And once I've done that, then I open myself to that inner spark within me,
Okay.
that inner power.
Thank you very much for being with us today, Dr. Yoder, and helping us understand the happy mind. We're going to think about this. We're going to play this back again and again and try to understand.
There's on my website, thehappymindbook.com.
Yeah.
I've got. I recently wrote a whole long series on forgiveness, and knowing that I was going to do this show, I put right up at the top of the page a link you could click to read that series. So, if anybody's interested in more of that, it's available.
All right. Thank you again for being with us. This is Dr. William Yoder. He is the author of a book called The Happy Mind.
Thank you, Suzanna.
God bless. We're going to be back with your calls. We've got calls on the line. Don't think we're not going to come